March 1945. The war in Europe was nearing its end, but no one at Allied headquarters was willing to say it out loud. Germany was wounded, bleeding, retreating on every front, yet still dangerous. The Rhine River stood as the final natural barrier between the Allied armies and the German heartland. For months, it had loomed in every briefing, every map room, every strategic discussion. Whoever crossed it first would not just enter Germany. They would decide how the war ended. At Supreme Headquarters, General Dwight Eisenhower understood this better than anyone. The Rhine was not just a river. It was a line of history, psychology, and fear. For centuries, invading armies had stalled there. German planners believed it would give them time to regroup, time to slow the Allies, time they desperately needed. The Allied plan was careful, deliberate, and massive. Bridges would be seized or built. Airborne troops would drop behind enemy lines. Engineers would prepare pontoon crossings under fire. Everything would happen according to schedule. Nothing would be rushed. Except George Patton did not believe in waiting. Patton's Third Army had been racing across France since the breakout from Normandy. His tanks had outrun their supplies. His soldiers had slept beside roads and in frozen fields, and his staff had learned to plan at a speed that unsettled everyone else. By the time Allied forces reached the western bank of the Rhine, Patton was already restless. To him, the river was not an obstacle, it was an invitation. On the evening of March 7th, Patton was at his headquarters when word came in that would change everything. To the north, American forces had captured the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen intact. It was a miracle. A German demolition charge had failed. Allied troops were already pouring across the Rhine. The news electrified Allied command. Eisenhower immediately ordered the bridgehead expanded. Montgomery accelerated his own crossing plans. Bradley reassessed his timelines. The race was on. Patton read the report and smiled. If someone else could cross the Rhine unexpectedly, so could he. Patton had already been studying the river for days. His intelligence officers had reported weak German defenses along certain stretches. His engineers had been quietly preparing bridging equipment. His units were close, closer than anyone realized. What Patton saw was not a wall, it was a moment. He summoned his staff and gave an order that would have made any other general hesitate. They would cross the Rhine immediately. No waiting for grand plans. No waiting for approval ceremonies. No waiting for airborne drops or massive artillery preparation. They would cross now. Patton's officers stared at him. The Rhine was wide, fast, and heavily defended. German artillery could turn a crossing into a massacre. The official Allied crossing was still days away. Acting early could embarrass higher command. It could disrupt coordination. It could even provoke political backlash. Patton did not care. He believed war rewarded speed, not caution. Whoever hesitated gave the enemy time to recover, and Patton had no intention of giving Germany another hour. Orders went out quietly. Engineers prepared assault boats under cover of darkness. Infantry units moved toward the river without fanfare. Artillery units registered targets but did not fire. Everything was done as if this were a routine movement, not one of the most consequential river crossings in modern history. On the night of March 22nd, Third Army moved. The Rhine loomed black and silent under the moonlight. German defenders, exhausted and disorganized after months of retreat, did not expect an immediate crossing here. They believed the Allies would wait. They were wrong. American infantry slipped into boats and pushed off. The river carried them forward faster than expected. German sentries spotted movement and opened fire, but it was too late. Within minutes, American soldiers were on the eastern bank. They had crossed the Rhine. By dawn, Patton's forces were pouring across. Engineers worked frantically to assemble pontoon bridges. Tanks rolled forward as soon as steel touched water. Artillery followed. Trucks, supplies, entire divisions flowed into Germany. Patton stood on the western bank watching it happen. He was grinning. Someone handed him a note. It was from his headquarters staff. They suggested he notify Eisenhower immediately. Patton did more than notify him. He sent a message that would become legendary. "Dear Ike, today I crossed the Rhine." Then, with typical Patton flair, he added a line that made his staff wince. "I hope this doesn't embarrass you." At Supreme Headquarters, Eisenhower read the message in silence. Those around him waited. Some expected anger, others expected a sharp reprimand. Patton had crossed one of the most symbolically important barriers of the war without explicit authorization. He had done it early, he had done it quietly, and he had done it successfully. Eisenhower looked up and smiled. "Well, Brad," he said to Omar Bradley, "I guess he did it again." What Eisenhower understood, and what many later missed, was that Patton had not disobeyed orders. He had acted within intent. Eisenhower wanted the Rhine crossed as quickly as possible. Patton had simply done it faster than expected. Instead of reprimanding him, Eisenhower sent congratulations. "Good luck and good going," he wrote back. That message said everything. The crossing of the Rhine by Third Army shattered what remained of German hopes for an organized defense. The psychological impact was enormous. German units that had believed the river would slow the Allies now found American tanks behind them. Patton did not pause. Once across, Third Army exploded eastward. German resistance crumbled. Towns fell in hours. Entire units surrendered without a fight. The war, already lost, now felt inevitable. Patton's pace stunned even his own commanders. His columns advanced day and night. Supply officers struggled to keep up. Maps were outdated almost as soon as they were printed. Eisenhower watched it all unfold, with a mixture of admiration and relief. He had always known Patton was difficult. He was impulsive, outspoken, impossible to fully control. But moments like this justified every risk Eisenhower had taken to keep him in command. After the war, Eisenhower reflected on the Rhine crossing in private conversations. He acknowledged that Patton's initiative had accelerated the collapse of German resistance in the South. It forced the enemy to abandon any hope of stabilizing the front. It shortened the war. Bradley, ever more reserved, admitted something similar. "Patton had a sense for the moment," he said. "When others saw obstacles, he saw opportunity." The Rhine crossing became another example of Patton's instinctive understanding of tempo. He did not wait for perfect conditions. He created them. He understood that war was not won by plans alone, but by recognizing when the enemy was off balance and striking before they recovered. German commanders later confirmed this. In post-war interrogations, several admitted they expected the Allies to pause at the Rhine. They believed they had time to regroup. Patton's sudden crossing shattered those assumptions. One German officer described it simply. "We thought the river would save us. Then Patton came across it like it wasn't even there." For Patton, the crossing was personal. He had spent his career studying warfare, obsessed with ancient campaigns and historic battles. He believed he had lived past lives as a soldier. Standing on the Rhine, watching his army pour into Germany, he felt history folding in on itself. He had crossed the final barrier. He had done it his way. And Eisenhower, the man responsible for balancing alliance politics, egos, and strategy, understood that some victories only came from letting a commander act on instinct. That was what Eisenhower said, not publicly, not in speeches, but in the decisions that mattered. He let Patton run. And because he did, the war ended sooner. Thanks for watching.